One question I often get asked is if I was to start again from the very get-go of my property investing journey, what would I do? So today I want to answer that question and break down exactly what I would do if I was looking to enter the market in 2022 in this hyper-competitive space and how I would look to build a property portfolio. Over the last 6 years, my wife and I have built up a property portfolio of 8 investment properties, plus our primary place of residency, and that portfolio is well and truly going to set us up for retirement. But if I was entering back into the market and buying my very first property in 2022, I want to explain what I would do. First and foremost, I'd be having a look and seeing what government grants there are and what different schemes are available. Currently, throughout Australia, there is the First Home Buyers Deposit Scheme, which means that you could buy a property with just a 5% deposit, and it depends on the price ranges depending on the area. For regional Queensland in Cairns, the property limit is 450,000. So to manage to secure that 5% deposit scheme, you will need to be buying under 450,000, which very much makes it still possible, and it does make that property purchase a good investment, especially in that price range in Cairns. If you were to buy something, live in it for long enough to basically fulfill the obligations of that grant and then rent it out into the future, that's certainly one pathway I would be looking at. The other pathway I'd be looking at the moment is buying affordable units. Throughout regional Australia, especially in Cairns at the moment, there is some really good units that you can buy as investments for under 200,000 that offer a 5% yield. So 5% yield after your outgoings, after your body corporate fees, after your council rates, it is possible to still achieve a 5% yield. And that's something I'd be really looking out towards. So that first property, essentially to save that deposit, I would really look at hustling that first year just to get my foot in the market. If that meant taking up a second job, if that meant flipping stuff on Facebook Marketplace or Gumtree, if it meant having to make a few short-term sacrifices, I really think it is worth it. And you'll see as I run through the numbers what it looks like after buying 1, 2 or 3 properties over 3 years, what those numbers start to do over a period of time. And I strongly believe over a 5-year period, you can really start to set yourself up that you're seeing the benefits of those investments, and that hard work and those sacrifices made in year 1 really come to fruition quite quickly. So I'm excited to share those numbers with you as this video progresses. Now, the big thing with your first purchase is you do need to make sure you're buying well, you're buying below market, and you're buying something that can manufacture growth. If you're hustling and saving and putting in all that work to save the deposit, to then not put in an equal amount of work to buy something that is a fantastic buy, is really shooting yourself in the foot. What I recommend to most people is to inspect a minimum of 30 properties. So physically go to the open homes, physically arrange with agents, and make sure you walk through at least 30 doors to really start to get a feel for the market and find out what those properties end up selling for. This homework, even though it might seem like a lot, will really ensure when you find the right property that you know you're actually getting a genuinely good buy, as this will be fundamental to setting yourself up for property 2, property 3, and maybe property 4 or 5 down the track. Now, to run through these numbers, I want to jump into a spreadsheet. I love a good spreadsheet, so follow me along. So my goal here is to try and not have your eyes glaze over and not confuse you too much with the numbers. But I do want to run through the numbers and hope that you do get a bit of an understanding here, because once you start to understand the numbers, you can really see how this compound growth and how property investing and building a portfolio isn't as challenging as what people think, and how that snowball effect really starts to take place. So a couple of assumptions here on these purchases. Firstly, I truly believe that you can buy property under market value. By looking and hunting and knowing your market, it's possible to tell when that property that pops up is a deal, and when that property that pops up that you can manufacture that growth, do a bit of renovations to, and really add value to, comes along. So this is what these numbers are based on the fact that you can pick up really good deals in the market if you do your homework. So you can pause this as we go along and run through the numbers. And if you do have questions, absolutely comment below or send me a message. I'm happy to answer them. But there's a few key components here. So essentially, we're looking at units and probably needing to be in a regional market for these price points to work. But essentially looking at purchasing something around 200,000. These numbers are just round numbers, but they are realistic numbers in regional markets. So looking at purchasing a property around 200,000 which if you're buying it as an investment, you will need around 37,000. As I said earlier, if you don't have that sort of money, I would skimp, borrow, save, work a second job, flip things, do whatever I needed to do to save that first deposit, as it does make such a big difference, especially looking 5 years into the future. You'll absolutely thank yourself for putting in one hard year and making that work. So to buy this property, you will need around 37,000, and that's to cover the 10% deposit on the 200,000, 7,000 for stamps and legals, and a $10,000 budget to renovate the property. You're looking for something where you can manufacture growth. So what this looks like is essentially you'll end up with a loan for 183,000. Now we're buying something that is below market value. So straight off the get-go, I really feel you can find something for around 200,000 that is worth 220,000 if you put it straight back on the market, and after renovations be worth 240. I've done this personally a number of times. I've helped clients do this. I know it's possible. So that's the goal, to buy something for around 200,000, spend 10,000 renovating it, and have it valued at 240,000 at the end. With this as an investment, you'd then be having a rental income with a net rental income of around 5%. So that's after council rates, after all your outgoings bar interest, you're returning a 5% yield. With an interest rate of 3%, essentially leaves you a profit of 6,600 a year. So in your first year, if the property was then to go up by 5%, your total profits after 12 months would be 18,600. So that's the property going up in value by 12,000. That's 5% of the total value at the end, plus your rental profits brings you to 18,600. Now, what do you do with that? The property's gone up with value, you've bought well, you've manufactured growth. Essentially, then you want to start building the portfolio and manufacturing and refinancing to go again. So essentially, at the end of the first year, the property will be worth 252,000. You've got a loan of 183,000. Essentially, you then want to refinance, which the banks will do a loan to value ratio of 90%. You would be paying LMI, but essentially it means you could increase the loan back to 201,600, which means you could finance out 18,600. By the time you include the rental income in there for that first year, after the first year of owning that property, you would then be up another 25,200 on the 240,000. So moving then into the second property, you're not having to scrimp and borrow and save and hustle and work your ass off to save that that full 37. You've already got a $25,000 head start. So that brings us into year two. Year two, you'll be buying the second property. You'll have that rental income of 6,600 times 2, which is 13,200. You then repeat the process up above, refinancing out, taking your profits, and essentially you'd end up with around 37,000 from repeating that process come the year two, which, looking at what you need, essentially it means come year two, you're not actually having to save to buy that third property. You've got the funds there ready to go, purely by the market going up just 5% and collecting that rental income. Coming into year three, this is when things get really exciting. Not only are you automatically saving your deposit for property number 4, but you're also generating a really good rental income, around 20 grand per year rental income, and the property's going up around 40,000 for the 3 properties you then own if the market goes up 5%, meaning your total profits would be 57,000 for that year, which is a bloody good increase in your net position and really sets you up if you were to go again and buy a 4th property. You're not having to save a single dollar. You could then be starting to look at houses or more expensive properties. There's an example of how in just 3 years you could build a property portfolio of 3 different properties and start generating a passive income. Now, if I was buying in 2022 and looking to build my very first property portfolio, that is the exact path I would be taking. And running along that path can really set you up into the future. Like anything in life, it's never guaranteed. There probably will be hurdles, but I think the consequences of inaction certainly is a far bigger risk than actually taking action and going down that pathway, as it can really set you up, especially into retirement, especially as you own that property portfolio into the future. If you do have any questions in regards to this video, it might have been a little bit more of a complex one, I highly recommend reaching out and asking those questions. I'd love to help you. navigate through the property investment world and maybe give you some guidance. But as always, not an investment advisor, so make sure you seek that advice independently. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this video and I look forward to speaking to you soon.